Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Isaiah, and what you're listening to is the very first in what I hope to be a series of vlogs talking about my life, things I'm thinking about, queer history, becoming a working artist, etc., etc. Don't have to go through the whole thing. I wanted my first video to be about Q-Force actually, because I watched it. And I mean, if you're on the internet and you're queer, you've probably seen that really horrible trailer that looked like it was Family Guy trying to poke fun at the queer community. It was bad. I don't like Family Guy, so doubly bad. But I've been having issues trying to actually write that out. Media criticism is a lot harder than it looks, at least when you are super depressed and have no energy. So I'm putting that aside and I'm going to talk about something a little easier for me, asexuality. What it is, what it's not, and my own personal journey with discovering that I'm ace and the signs that I had and how it all got conflicted up with all this other shit. You'll see on the screen it's Minecraft playing because I have shitty video equipment, and as a non-binary trans man, I have severe body dysphoria, so I don't want to show my face anytime soon. Hopefully in the future, if things go well. So, asexuality, what is it? The bog standard dictionary definition is it is a lack of sexual attraction. That's it. Full stop. In a sentence. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200 because that is all it's about. It's about the sexual attraction. It's not about how horny you are. It's not about whether or not you like having sex. It's not about if you have a libido, which again is the horny thing. It's not about if you have sex. It's just if you experience sexual attraction. Well, what is sexual attraction? That is a little more amorphous and hard to explain. I've tried to talk about it with allosexuals. Allosexual meaning someone who does experience sexual attraction, be they heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, pansexual, etc. But it never makes sense to me. It's this amorphous, I think I've already used that word once, but it's a good word. Apparently, it's my word of the day. Let's see if I can use it with my partner. But it's a very individual thing. Just like if someone is choosing to consider themselves bisexual or pansexual, well, what's the difference? On the surface, it looks like it's the same. But to that individual, there is a difference, and they have selected it. So same thing with asexuality. If you find people attractive but you don't want to fuck them, you may be ace. If you are traumatized from past sexual experiences and you no longer have that urge to want to fuck people that you see or have a close bond with, you may be ace. If you only experience sexual attraction after you develop a deep emotional bond to them, you may be demisexual, which is exactly what I said. You develop a deep emotional bond to a person. It could be a person that you know IRL, could be your partner. It could be a fictional character. It can be a celebrity. Because, I mean, this day and age, we all know about parasocial relationships, right? It's not that big of a mystery anymore that you can develop a deep and close bond to people that don't even know you're alive. That was me with Harry Potter. Not sexual attraction to Harry Potter, just I developed a deep and personal bond with Harry Potter, the series, especially Hermione, and it was a very early form of parasocial relationship because that was when I was 8 in 2002. Before the internet became as huge as it is today. So, asexuality. I'm ace. I've always been ace, but I didn't always know it. And that's because I grew up mostly in Alabama. And that mostly not super important. For all intents and purposes, I was raised in Alabama from the age of 8 to whenever I decided to leave the first time to now, like 2020. I moved out to Philadelphia and I'm not going back. So, I mean, we know the jokes about Alabama: incest, country cooking, hillbilly, southern drawl, southern bells, racism. For me, it was the Southern Baptists. We went to church every Sunday and every Wednesday, so about twice a week. Not that my mom was the most religious of people, but it fit in with our schedule more often than not. And I guess it gave us a sense of community. My mom really needed that because before we settled down in Alabama, we bounced around a lot because my dad was in the Marine Corps. For me, it wasn't much of anything. I was never really someone who fit into a clique. Not that cliques are like the mean girl style, but you still had the people who were like the churchy, preppy. You had the band geeks and all of that, and I could kind of like slip into any group that I wanted. I was very amorphous, which is my word of the day. Um, but I mean, everyone gets that fun. Well, I shouldn't assume that you guys know. So, with this church in particular, you divided the kids from the teenagers, and that divide was specifically from fifth grade to sixth grade. And in sixth grade, I was so excited because I was finally getting to be with the big kids. I got tired of being with the little kids. I was a little fucking hipster, little know it all, considered mature beyond my years. You know, I was the gifted kid. Maybe that's why I have depression and anxiety now. Who knows? Um, so finally, sixth grade comes. I join the big kids. I get to hear the fun conversations and the singing and the worship that I always heard from my little fifth grade classroom and I always wanted to be part of instead of coloring. And about 3 months later, we had the talk. What is the talk? With Southern Baptists, it's about porn and sex and masturbation. And I'm sitting there at 12 years old. Now, mind you, at this time I thought I was a girl. I'd already had my first period. It was mildly traumatizing to say the least. And I was listening to this conversation about how it's not godly to have sex before marriage. It's bad to look up porn. It's so easy to get a porn addiction. Um, that sort of things. But using euphemisms and slanted language and kind of dancing around the actual words without talking about it. And I'm sitting there like, I don't experience any of this. Maybe this is something that happens when you're older that's harder because I mean, I only just moved from the little kids department. And that conversation would come up about every year or so. At the same time, as I went from middle school to high school, some of the non church going people that I knew about started getting pregnant. I distinctly remember my ninth grade English class. This girl started swelling up like a balloon and then she just disappeared. She completely dropped out of school. It was bizarre because it was also in the middle of our discussion of Romeo and Juliet. And still, I didn't feel anything. Now, like I said, I was able to drift in and out of different groups pretty easily. And one of the more interconnected groups was the marching band slash robotics team. So you had a lot of people having a lot of crossover between marching band and robotics. And a lot of my friends at the time were, if they weren't in marching band, they were in robotics or very closely associated with it. I was in both. Um, people started talking about sex because these marching band robotics people, they were not Christians, or not as in deep as I was at the time. Though I consider myself to be an absolute idiot back then because Southern Baptists are evangelicals. So I was like, I'm going to prove the best life possible to these heathens by showing the love of Christ through me. And this was before I even got super in depth with it. It was like 11th grade, and then I went off the rails. But before then, I was a lot quieter about it, but I still had this kind of stuck up attitude compared to my friends. Who was like, I know where I'm going. Meanwhile, you, Justin, if you walk into the church, you're going to set on fire. Lord. God, I was a little shit back then. So, 14, 15, 16, that's when teens start experimenting with the sex. That's when they start having the children. If they weren't careful, and I mean, this was Alabama, so, abstinence only conversations, that sort of thing. I distinctly remember my sex ed in 10th grade was more about the dangers of STDs and how scary they are rather than anything else. We also watched the movie about Sybil, which, is actually kind of a bunch of bullshit, so that was interesting. But I still never experienced the temptation, as my church called it. I would sit in my little lower high school than upper high school girls group and listen to the other kids talk about it, listen to the youth pastor talk about the temptation and how bad it is, and these little videos that were about, don't do it, it's going to be so good when you get married. And it was just, I felt nothing. I was like, wow, I must be the perfect Christian in this aspect because, sure, I have crushes on girls, but I'm not tempted to fuck them. I don't want to do any of that. In fact, I was rather scared of sex because of the whole buildup that was coming around it. That was like, oh my God, to be this proper woman when I get married, I'm going to have to like get in bed with this dude that I'm married and he's going to stick his penis inside of me. I didn't even know what a penis looked like. And that was actually much more traumatizing than anything else apparently in my life because I carried that with me until I graduated and I got on the internet at the lovely age of 18 and I actually met someone who wanted to role play with me. Now, DeviantArt. I'm sure people remember DeviantArt. It's still around. I don't know if it's as big as it used to be or whatever, but at the time I was into it. I found out about written role play where you would write as if you're a character and someone else would write back responding to you. It was my shit. It basically tanked my freshman first semester because I got obsessed, especially with this one dude who I will call Alex, who quickly onboarded me from just writing romantic relationships to sexual ones. And then it went from original characters to me and him. And I didn't know I was trans yet. I was slow to make friends. I had made 2 friends that were also online, and they eventually got me out of this relationship. But at the time, we thought it was okay. And Alex and I were kind of just cybering eventually, where you would like talk or have virtual sex. And the entire thing was uncomfortable, a little traumatizing, a little strange because I was still Christian and he was a Christian too. But he would talk about his fertility issues and how much this meant to him and that sort of thing. And it was pretty gaslighty now that I look back on it. It was very traumatizing for me. And it wasn't until my friends realized what was happening that we stopped talking. And around the same time, one of these friends discovered that they were asexual. And I was like, wait, what's that? And they're like, oh, well, I read about it on Tumblr. Remember Tumblr? This is like back in 2011, 2012. And I was like, well, what's Tumblr? What is asexuality? And they're like, well, here it is. Here's this definition. And I stared at it and I was like, oh my God, that is me. I am asexual. And again, like I said, this is about 2012, maybe 2013, when I solidified I am ace. This is what I am. And back then, everyone was super careful to talk about how asexuality was a lack of sexual attraction. You don't have to be horny or stuff. I was like, I am the perfect ace. So I went from being, I am the perfect Christian to I am the perfect asexual because I don't even like the thought of sex. It's very puritanical thinking if you stop and think about it for a moment. And that was my life from whenever 2013 or whatever like that to 2018 or so, when I started deciding that I could finally transition, because I also knew at the time I was transgender. But a whole lot of stuff, that's another story for another time, happened, and I didn't start transitioning until I was 26. So one of the side effects of testosterone is you end up gaining a higher libido, or in my case, a libido at all. And it was scary at first because I thought I was losing my asexual identity, especially as time had worn on. People were being less, it's a lack of sexual attraction, and more like it's a lack of wanting to have sex. And even my therapist was like, it's okay if you're not ace anymore. I was like, no, I'm still ace. I still don't experience sexual attraction to people. I just have a physical urge and I don't know how to take care of it because I'd never been taught. And that took a while for me to sort out, but now it's the year of our Lord 2021, and not only am I a raging queer atheist, but I am still asexual. I'm asexual with a libido. I sometimes take care of that urge by myself, and that's totally fine. You can be ace with a libido. You can be ace and enjoy the act of sex. I don't know if I'm ever going to actually have sex. There's a whole lot to unpack there between my own body dysphoria and that deeply instilled Southern Baptist guilt that I have. But who knows? I can't tell the future. I'm with someone who's asexual as well, and they have been through trauma as well, much worse than mine. And they have no libido. And I love them to death, and we've worked it out. We have a system where if I'm horny, we can just put a pause button on things and I take care of myself until I get bored and move on. And I enjoy that about our relationship. So I think that about wraps it up for this recording. Hopefully this one is actually okay, because I've tried to record this so many times and either Nettle would get in the way or I would lose my track of thought. I was trying to make it too perfect, but this is just supposed to be a recording of my thoughts at the time. So let's hope this works out and I don't have to record it again. And feel free to comment, talk to me. I'm putting this over some Minecraft footage. It's just me tearing down, me flattening ground to sea level in Minecraft, which is level 62, so that I can slowly get to work on a mega build. And it ironically is on the asexual Minecraft server that I'm part of. So I hope to see you guys later. Have a fantastic day. Bye bye.